Good evening. It is not New Year's yet, but it will be soon. So I don't actually have a script for this video. I'm just gonna kind of wing it a bit, go off some points, some things that have evolved in the Linux space this last year. Just stuff I remember. Your engagement thing today is think of things that have happened that I didn't mention. Should be easy. So the thing I was gonna say today is 2025. Sorry if you hear fireworks going off. That'll happen in 2 years. Anyways, so 2025 I'd say is the year of the Linux desktop. You might be like, well, who the fuck switched over to Linux? Well, a lot of people did. Sure, it's not super mainstream yet, but if you haven't been checking YouTube in a while, or I guess if you're on TIL vids, you really haven't been checking YouTube, which you should totally follow me there, by the way. You should definitely follow my PeerTube and engage with me there instead of on YouTube because I put things there for you, and it's great. So, anyways, though, you've probably seen on YouTube that there's a lot of normie tech tuber type people that are like, oh, I tried Linux for 30 days. And that's cool and all, but they have varying degrees of success. Some of them really seem to enjoy it. Some of them change their entire workflow. Some of them learn DaVinci Resolve and GIMP and Krita and all that, Inkscape and all those things. Some people were like, "Oh, I just need Adobe. I just need Adobe, and I can't do anything without Adobe. My life is meaningless without Adobe." So, as you can see, if you want to make a YouTube channel, just open up OBS and record your desktop. It's that easy. But no, I'm kidding. Obviously, you wanna put effort into your quote content. But you had a lot of people that were, people like you could even walk outside and people are starting to have heard of Linux. Maybe it's because of you, but a lot of them though are actually. I meet people now, even like younger people who are like, yeah, I've heard of Linux. I just don't know anything about it. I don't know if I want to try it. But you have a lot of people now who are at least somewhat interested in the idea of, an alternative operating system being out there. And that's really a major shift in what it has been because obviously, the title of this video is meant to be a joke, but it's hard it actually gets harder and harder these past few years to consider it a joke and not a statement of actual hopeful optimism, you know? Because what we have is not only do all these new people now know what Linux is because they're being exposed to it by these tech tubers and everything, but you'll also see that people are successfully making the switch to, and they're actually permanently changing their computers over to Linux. For example, the big channel that came out either last year or the year before was John Boldewan. He's got like no subscribers, and he completely found that the Linux community is kind of annoying to talk to. But he switched over to Linux Mint, I think it was, and then he tried Ubuntu, and he was sticking around with Linux, and then said he really enjoyed it. So yeah, sorry you get the fireworks in this, and it's gonna ruin my train of thought a lot. But you have people that are not only choosing a new operating system and moving their workflow over to it, but they're doing it, with success. And that again is a major shift because I always I'll bring up very briefly. You've already heard this before, but I've been using Linux in some capacity for like the last probably since like 2012, around the Vista era, like before 7 had come out. So it might have been around 2008 or so, back when Ubuntu was on GNOME 2 or something. And I wasn't able to switch my main desktop, which I only really got a main desktop after like the Xbox One came out. I had a laptop until then, but I couldn't afford a gaming computer, so I just never had one. I had like a laptop to dick around on and play Minecraft while my CPU heated up so hot that the paint melted off my computer. But then I finally got a gaming desktop and I started building PCs, and then I was like, I really want to switch to Linux on this. It was around the Windows 10 era. I think like with Windows 7 it was pretty great. I just like pirated Windows 7 Ultimate and everything was good. But around 10 I started getting kind of miffed a bit because I saw Windows 10 at launch, you know. And I don't know if you remember Windows 10 at launch. This is kind of the problem with the cycle of the Wincuck is they'll say that 10 was great, but like, do you know how many computers I had to repair that had broken Windows 10 installs because of that stupid fucking upgrade Microsoft did? Like, seriously. And it was buggy for a while too. Like, I mean, like Windows 11's a lot worse, but 10, shit, man. Like, it took me a while to before I actually fully migrated over to 10. And I eventually did have to fuck around with it too much, and I had to start using Education and Enterprise and LTSC instead of the consumer editions because I had too many ads, and I was like, I don't like the system. I don't like what's going on here. And I didn't see it coming because I hadn't used 8 or 8.1 at all. I had 7. You know, it's what ran on my computer. It was what I was downloading. I didn't like the UI of 8. I didn't really care about 8.1. I wasn't gaming really hardcore on it, so 7 worked fine for me, but when 10 came out, I ended up switching to that. And it was around that time that I started looking for a change, and I had known that I had used Linux before, but it wasn't really gaming capable, so why would I put it on my gaming computer, you know? So then when 11, I mean, like shit, man. I tried 11 for a bit. I tried booting, and I was like, okay, here's my goal now. Is I'm gonna start looking for alternatives to every single program I use, and if I can't do it on Linux, I'm just not gonna do it. Like if I genuinely can't find a solution, I won't do it. You know, and I think the last thing that I haven't found yet is a really good like audio CD ripper, but I don't really rip CDs anymore. Yeah, I don't really care. So anyways, like Windows 11 was the final straw for me. I was like, okay, I'm gonna, and what a, that's why I always tell you that your process should be to, start looking for applications, be like, okay, I'm using Windows 11, but instead of using whatever image editor I use, I'm gonna use GIMP and I'm gonna learn GIMP so that when I make the switch, I'll already know GIMP. And I'm gonna start trying to dual boot these distros on a separate drive or a separate computer, but preferably a separate drive so that you know that it works with your hardware. And I'm gonna start installing Linux on these drives, and I'm gonna figure out which distro works best for me because a lot of them like shit. I run into bugs all the time. I ran into like 10 different bugs today. It pissed me off so much. I did get everything working though, but it took a while. And so that I'll rope that into the topic of this video is Year of the Linux Desktop is because Microsoft has kinda killed support for Windows 10 almost, you know. So with this, you're either switching to 11 or you're gonna have to pay for security updates, and that is not cool. If you're gonna fuck everybody over, you could at least not charge them while you fuck them in the ass. You know what I mean? Like shit, man. But people will. I actually did meet some very deranged PC gamers that said they would gladly pay Microsoft for another year of updates, and then I don't know. I don't know what their contingency plan was after that year. They just said, "Oh, I'll see what's happening a year from now." I was like, "Well, guess what? It's getting fucking worse." Like shit, it gets worse. It does not get better. It gets worse. So PC gamers, like I know I rag on them a lot, but they have given me a lot of grief over, oh, you use a non-working operating system, you use Gentoo, so you're always fucking around with everything, compiling fucking Steam and all that. You're not actually using your computer, you're just playing in the terminal, and which is true. I like doing that, you know, but like on Arctics, I barely do any of that. I use the terminal for a lot of things, but it's not like that's my main focus. I do all my normal stuff on here. I make videos, I play games, I talk on the internet, I do all that shit. And so anyways, like, so Windows 10 being end of support means you do eventually, like, what I've had to do for charities is I used to ship Windows 10 with computers. I would pirate it just because I couldn't afford licenses or whatever. Fuck me, you know. But I started shipping Linux on these computers because now Windows 11 is the supported one, and so I can't give people an unsupported operating system, and that's why a lot of charities are having to just throw computers away. And I will say, because I do have a contention with this, that Wayland doesn't really target older hardware. It targets reasonably old hardware where you're not like running e-waste like I was, but that was a huge problem for me is I needed Xorg to run on these like old 2008 computers. But honestly, like if I'm really being honest, if your computer's from 2008, you've had almost 20 years to upgrade. Like you've had time. You know, it's time to somebody will probably give you a computer that can run Wayland at this point. That's how bad it is because I have met people that run Windows Vista on these like ancient 1 gigabyte of RAM single core pieces of shit, you know? And I'm like, dude, can you not like go to the fucking food bank and get a computer or something? Like shit, man. And so people do that, and that's why I have always been, we need to have Xorg up to date and running. But the big development is Wayland is finally at least usable enough for my computers. All my computers except one of them right now run Wayland, and that one's capable of running Wayland. So it has finally gotten to the point where I can use it on my desktop, even with NVIDIA, and it generally works. There's a couple of quirks, but that's because my use case is really niche. So that's a major development is we finally have a new display protocol without the screen tearing that I know it's misinformation, but I actually just spent like 20 or 30 minutes trying to get DWM not to screen tear. So until X Libra comes out fully, like that's gonna be a problem we deal with, you know. So Wayland at least does address that. So But yeah, like the other big thing that we've had is not only does Wayland work now, but Valve has been putting significant effort into one of the big use cases of having a PC these days, like a dedicated PC, because honestly, a lot of the shit now you can do on a tablet, like gaming and creative stuff like video editing and stuff is still stuff you do on a workstation, but for a personal computer like a lot of people, that's kind of why I don't like the whole YouTubers try Linux thing, is because they start bitching about YouTuber stuff, and I don't deal with YouTuber stuff because I don't fucking do any of that. Even though obviously I have a channel, but you see how my channel operates. But the big one that justifies having a PC these days, besides like Office software, which is starting to become more platform agnostic, is to play video games. Why else do you have a PC these days? Unless you're like a professional. So, because you don't really need them to check your email anymore. That's usually the computers I'm giving out is like people that don't have a phone and need to check their email. But gaming was a huge thing, and Valve has put significant effort into. I know I say I'm not super impressed with their hardware, but I genuinely actually pretty uh, I am pretty impressed with it because it not only does it perform pretty well, but it also has pretty good compatibility and it runs Linux. So, sorry. So not only do you have the Steam Deck, but you also have the new GameCube coming out. And so, although it won't be priced super well compared to a console, because like a PS5 is like 350 right now, but you will have a box you can do a lot more with than just than just play video or sorry, than just play the latest AAA crap, And I think a lot of people, as we move forward, uh, because a lot of people will start buying the Steam Decks and Steam boxes and all that, and developers will notice that customers are willing to forego their games if they don't run on their system, you know. But there's a trick to that though, that you're not going to force the market. What's going to happen is you're going to adjust to the market. And so if you can't play the latest Call of Duty, you're just kind of going to have to live with that because there's no way they're going to make that for Linux. And that's fine. Go play something better, honestly. Like it's a good time to refine your taste, start looking for games that do work on your platform, and start enjoying games again. Oh my god, all these games are so unfun these days. But yeah, I think that over the last couple of years, that's why I switched. Is because I could finally run my games on my gaming PC. Like, I know that's a hard concept, but yeah, it was a huge thing for me. It was having to dual boot just to play my games. Now I don't have to do that anymore. I don't need Windows for anything. So that's really cool for me. And I think a lot of people kind of fall in the same boat too, that they're not playing League of Legends or they're trying to get away from competitive slot games. Because I know that it's drastically improved my mental health switching off these competitive games. I just don't play them anymore. So that's been helpful for me. But anyways, like, so we have all of these huge developments in the Linux space, right? Not only does your a lot of these proprietary programs work now, like you have full blown screen share on, like Discord and stuff now. You're able to do full video conferencing. You can do your daily life from a Linux computer now, which is something that I couldn't really say a while ago. And a lot of it has to do with, as much as we hate it, but web apps have been a huge thing for that. And these web apps have allowed programs to become more platform agnostic, and that's been helpful over the last few years. Is getting people to be able to interact with each other on these different platforms for the most part. Like I know it's still a PC, but there was a time where a lot of this stuff didn't work, and that wasn't too far away. You know, so yeah, I would say that if there's anything that the one improvement I think we'll see in 2026 is Canva has said that they're going to try making Affinity for the Linux desktop. And once that happens, there will be no excuse because the Adobe people can, like, you, you would think that because they love Adobe so much that they actually like the software, but it turns out they really don't. And since I quit it so long ago, I didn't notice that Adobe was becoming buggier and buggier every release, and it started breaking people's files and shit. Like, this is supposed to be the professional software, but you end up suffering due to its proprietary nature, you know? And I think people are going to start waking up to that they'll see how far behind Windows has been for so long. Like, it has just gotten to the point where they support RAR files out of the box, something we've had forever. Same thing with like WebP format, their image editor, or not image editor, like their Imageer couldn't support all these formats like JPEG XL and stuff, and you would need textures and TIFFs and stuff like that. You would need a third party image viewer. If you wanted an archive manager, you need a third party archive manager. If you wanted a text editor, you need a third party text editor. Just to edit rich text, like all the shit that people just lived without. They were like, oh yeah, it just doesn't come with the operating system. It's like, dude, we have all that shit over here. It's free. It comes with your system. you know we don't we don't have to deal with this because it's not proprietary. We get the latest support day one. It's fantastic, all these open standards that the companies don't support. So yeah, it has been a really good year for Linux, especially this year, and I do expect that to continue into next year because there's huge amounts of development going on. Projects are becoming more mature. Things are moving at a quick pace. And we have support for pretty much all the big things that you need these days. The one thing holding us back really is creative, like professional creative software. Not something you necessarily need, but something that a lot of people that are professionals would love to change their work computers over to Linux, but they can't do it because they need that professional tools. So Adobe dying will probably be like it's not something we will gain. It will be something that people will lose that will cause us to get more market share. And market share isn't important. It's not testable or whatever, because so many people spoof their user agent and stuff. But but these it won't be, it's no longer something we will get. It will be something that people will learn to live without. And so that will be either Adobe or these AAA video games that are, the multiplayer ones or whatever. Once people learn to live without these products that directly, or sorry, that keep them in this abusive relationship, that will be how we gain users. Because let's be real, do you want Adobe on Linux? Like, be honest. Do you, if Adobe showed up on Linux tomorrow, would you buy it? And the answer is probably no. I mean, if I'm being real, some people probably yeah, but like for the vast majority of us, I think that we are looking for a less buggy, less predatory alternative to Adobe that gives us somewhat equivalent feature set, or like maybe even better, but without the Adobe crap on top of it. You know, I think that'll be the big sell, is if we get something that isn't Adobe. And that's kind of the misconception I think people have, is that they think that if we just had Adobe, everybody would switch, but not many people use it. It's more like a professional thing, and they'll just use whatever they need to because it's a work computer. They can switch over to Macs if they want to. I don't care. But yeah, so if there is a year of the Linux desktop, I would say 2025, maybe 2024, 2026 marks the beginning of it. And what it's gonna come down to is the year of the Linux desktop is not what we think it is, or sorry, rather, it's not it's not when everybody switches to Linux. It's when you switch to Linux, your friends switch to Linux, your family switches to Linux. When the people around you start switching, that's when it starts. And if you surround yourself with people that are making the switch, you're seeing all these new people coming into the community that are all bright-eyed and shiny, and they're ready to, fuck up their installs and whatever, and they're learning, they're learning all these cool new tools and everything, and it really puts the fun back into computing, something that we sort of lost over the years. Is just the fun of fucking around with your computer, something that Microsoft and Apple have really taken away from us. Uh, Sorry, the fireworks are gonna keep going off as if it's celebrating the bullshit I'm saying right now. But yeah, like, because that really has been taken from us, is the ability to just like fuck around with your system files, break shit, install random shit that you never would have thought of before. Just cool things, change your desktop, change your everything, change your theme. I got a whole thing going on here, and I was like, yeah, I haven't done theming in a while. I probably should really do that. Because it's been so long since I bothered theming my desktop. Yeah, it was something that I used to do on Windows back when that was the thing, and now I can do it again. So it's really cool. But yeah, you can do all the shit that you can no longer do on Windows, and I find it kind of ironic that PC gamers will talk about, oh, I love PC gaming because I can really tinker with my system, and it's like, dude, what you did was you put together a bunch of products, you put little Legos together, you got yourself a nice bright light up keyboard, and then you downloaded some shovelware that eats like a gig of space, takes forever to run, makes your PC run this slow to a crawl, and just fucks around, triggers your anti cheat and all this other shit. Like, what do you call it? Tinkering. This is like kids shit. Like, and really, if I'm being honest, this whole RGB fad, it's kid shit. Like, uh, not to say that if you're an adult and you like this RGB thing that you're showing a lack of maturity, but come on, man, like shit, man. It really does look so tacky. I mean, really, and it fucks around with your computer so much because you're always having to install this garbage in order to run it. I was like, geez, man. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. Is I'd say 2025 has marked what I would consider, if there is a year of the Linux desktop, this is probably it. Where you now have, I hadn't mentioned yet, but there is. So one of my main gripes is to find a computer with Linux on it. Like you're going to the store, you go into Best Buy or Walmart or whatever, and the only computer that has Linux on it is a Chromebook. And not for very much longer. It's gonna switch to Android, which is technically Linux, but not really. So, you know, and what happens is like, people will ask, "Oh, what kind of computer should I buy?" And like normal people will ask me that, and I can't recommend them a Linux computer because I can't ensure that their stuff runs on it. So I usually just tell them to buy a Mac. Like really, like for the normie that doesn't give a fuck about any of this and just wants a computer that works, I can't recommend Windows because it's gonna be so full of fucking ads. Like just spend the 300 whatever dollars, get yourself an M1. Like that is the normie computer now. Is you're either Linux or you're Mac now. Windows is kind of out of it. But obviously the Mac has trouble with gaming, so I don't know, get yourself a PS5 or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of we have made a lot of significant developments in Linux over the last year or so. And it is to the point where I'm satisfied with it. I think it can only get better from here. But yeah, it'll just as Windows 10 goes to end of life, I do know some of my friends who have shit, man. I'm at a computer hobby club. These guys are all into retro computers. They're like way better at computers than me. A lot of them have never tried Linux before. Like old guys never tried it, never touched it, and they're starting to try it now. They're starting to put it on their old devices because they're like, "Oh, I have this device that really you can do stuff with it, and other than retro Windows, this thing can actually, run a full modern operating system with the modern browser, and it can just work again." And I think that's a really cool use for it, which was kind of my problem with Wayland is like all these distros dropping X support. It's like yeah, that's cool for these newer computers, but if your computer doesn't support Wayland very well, like you are gonna have to toss it on the garbage and get a new one, even for Linux. And I don't really like that idea. So hopefully X stays around for a while. I'm hoping that this Phoenix thing takes off. I'm hoping that X Libra takes off and keeps it going because it is important that we have this ecosystem for people that may not have latest greatest computer. They might not have a relatively up to date machine. And I am one of those people that says that higher market share will generally be better for us. I mean, sure, it starts to raise security concerns as people start targeting Linux, but honestly, like because of the open source nature of it, bugs will quickly be found and taken care of, and we'll figure it out. I'm sure there'll be another XE type incident, but it won't be the same. You know. And so as we get better prepared for that, maybe we'll have to rely on a bit less trust of our community. We'll have to actually vet people and make sure that the stuff they're doing is legitimate. But yeah, I mean, oh yeah, so I was gonna rope that back into. So you go to Best Buy and you buy a computer, but now there's so many OEMs and SIs that support Linux now. Like you can, and I guess not OEM, kind of OEMs if you consider rebadges, but System 76 is getting into making their own hardware instead of just rebadging Clevo. Same with Nova Custom. Tuxedo Computers makes their own stuff. They even make these crazy high-end video workstations like laptops and shit. It's really cool. I've got a Star Labs. That's my cool computer of the year. This is a Star Labs Starlight tablet, and there. Who else is there? I'm gonna feel so bad for not naming them. Oh yeah, Framework, of course. And so there's all these companies that are making these Linux first devices now, and it is kind of sad to see that because of people's fucking opinions on the internet. Like, if you know me, you know my opinions on things. I'm like batshit insane. I make DHH look like a fucking moderate. Like I make Baxter look like a normal guy. So I do empathize greatly with with especially like Framework and DHH, where I've seen the shit that they've said, and I'm like, you had no fucking reason to cancel these people, like straight up. Like it really just seems like sabotage by a increasingly violent mob, that just wants to shut down anybody that does good work. And that really is sad to see because like we do have huge contributions made by people. Like Framework makes these awesome devices that help support the right to repair environment, as well as the Linux first environment. And I feel like you shouldn't be sorry for buying one of those laptops. I feel like if you think that Framework has a gun to your head and they're ready to pull the trigger, you're severely mischaracterizing the situation. Nobody's got a gun to your head. Nobody's trying to kill you. Like, I'm sure there are people trying to kill you. People probably want to kill me, but these people are not it. They just want to make good products and they just want to make good software and they want to improve the environment for the rest of us. And I'm sure they consider you part of their environment, like part of their community. They want you in it, like whoever you are. They just may not like you getting political in their environment or community or whatever. And I think that's important to understand. I mean, I'm not trying to get like that, but seriously, like a lot of this shit it's just gone too far. Like it really has. I feel like a lot of these people are being victimized by this culture now. And it sucks, because like what the fuck are they gonna do? Like they're out there trying to make products, trying to make money and all that. Then we got people trying to fuck them over, for shit they said on a blog or something, not even in public issue trackers. So that's my rant on that. But yeah, I would say that we have seen new distros come into play. We finally have a general consensus that Linux Mint is the way to go for these older computers and people just getting into Linux, and that's great to see because that actually was an issue for a while. Was we didn't have a definitive answer, and it would start arguments in the comments. But like I give people Linux Mint. I mean, you see my like so I always tell people because people will mention like, oh, I wish that this tech tuber had mentioned Devon instead of Mint, as their distro because uh, it would help the people get into a better distro. And I'm like, I mean, Devon's okay. I'm using it on a laptop right now, but I was like, I kind of don't want them to do that because once you get into the non-system D stuff, you actually do get arguments in the comments, and that's a bad first impression for new users. Is they're getting not only into the Linux thing, but they're getting into the anti-system D war, and so you generally want something that has very little controversy surrounding it, where people generally don't fight over it, and Linux Mint is probably the best option for that. So I say just stick with that. If you need to, maybe Ubuntu, but probably not. Mint is the go-to right now. And that's another, again, development that we've had over this last few couple of years or so is people are able to just pick a distro and install it. That this choice paralysis isn't so much of a problem now because all your software is bundled into this distro, you know. But it's always there if you want to start making choices. That's what I do. I'm on fucking Arctics. Like I enjoy that kind of stuff. I make choices on my computer and I make it do the things I want it to do. So, and again, that's where I get back to. That's the fun of computers that we've sort of lost over the years. That has been slowly taken from us by just all the devices around us. Like I used to do a lot of Android modding, and that's been taken away from me. The ROM community, like the XDA community, blew up. It all moved to Telegram. My carrier stopped doing bring your own device for a lot of devices. So I'm really at that point where I'm just like, fuck it, just give me a phone that works. It's a phone. I'll do whatever I want with it. And I'll stick with Android, of course, but I'm like, I can't be fucking around with these phones anymore because I'm starting to run into ROMs that aren't that good, and the developers don't even have the device tested on. I'm running into, Root doesn't let you do your online banking or your wallet or anything, which is something I actually use now. And so, as technology's taking over my life, I do need an outlet for this kind of thing, where I can actually have a project computer and do whatever I want with my computer. And that's something that I really wish people would value more, especially again the PC gamer. They would have so much fun with Linux if they went and tried it again. But they're like, oh, I think my games just work, everything just works. I just want to sit on Windows and dick it and all that. So yeah, it's something that I think again, it won't be something that we gain at this point. It'll be something that's taken away from people. And you just have to continuously fuck over your customers. You have to continuously boil the frog until they realize that they're being boiled and they jump out or they die. You know? I forget what my actual analogy was to boiling the frog. I had a different one that applied to something like this, but I can't remember what it was. Uh, I'll let you know if I remember. But I had a more accurate thing than frog boiling. But anyways, yeah. Happy New Year's, guys. I'd say 25 is shit as close to the Linux near the Linux desktop as we gotten so far. Like Jesus Christ, I do think it'll continuously get better and market share will improve. But the takeaway I want you to have for this is we had a lot of significant developments this year. Stuff that a lot of people were waiting for to make the switch, and now the excuses are starting to run a bit lower. You know, they have less reasons to stay on Windows. There's more reasons to join Linux. There's more reasons to hate Microsoft and all that. And that's going to be huge for us is just Microsoft fucking around too much, you know? And so obviously you have a New Year's resolution of some sort. I made a joke on Mastodon and said, "Oh yeah, my goal is to my New Year's resolution is to bully Windows users." Not really, but anyways, like yeah, have a good New Year's, guys. We'll see what happens next year, but I'm eager for the GameCube. I'm eager to see what System 76 puts out. I'm eager to see a lot of things. Shit, man. Like, you can go. If you don't subscribe to any RSS feeds, I would subscribe to Bleeping Computer, Phoronix, and some other stuff. I don't really subscribe to many feeds, but I have a couple Linux news sites in my feed, and they offer RSS feeds still. So if you use something like Brave, there's Brave News. If you use the terminal, you can use Newsboat or Newsraft. There's all sorts of different ways you can, read RSS feeds on your phone or whatever. You can just subscribe to pages. Just read the news. Like, just once a day, check your Linux news and just see what's going on because like just about every day something cool is happening, whether it be a new kernel version or Nvidia doing something. You know, just there's always something cool happening, even if it's not something you'll personally use. You wanna be in the loop. So if you want a New Year's resolution, I'm gonna try to read more. I won't necessarily make videos on it. I doubt I will, because this is more of a diary channel. I don't really need to talk about that stuff. I do mention some significant developments though on occasion when it's something that I have ideas about. But for the most part, I just want to be more in the loop. Now that I'm not on like Discords or anything where people generally share this kind of news, I want to get it from like actual news sites and all that. So yeah, fine. Yeah. Have a good New Year's, guys. See ya. Bye.